networking is a key activity for the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. In fact, I think that's the kernel, because really what we are here for is to link business people in Nigeria and the USA.
Nigeria needs to maximize on the impact of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that's the AFCFTA. And so the African Foods and Products Exhibition has been put together to showcase the best of African products from various African countries, not just Nigeria. We're expecting exhibitors from West Africa, East Africa, amongst others. Now, we want to see the products that have been put together by these people in Africa and then speak to the world that we are able to measure up with exportation standards. So these are some of the objectives of this exhibition. Also, it's giving SMEs across the country an opportunity to showcase the best of what they do. We've been seeing various collaborations with African organizations across the country and across the continent. So this is indeed one of the many objectives the Chamber has put together to support SMEs.
And now to our first conversation. Well, the global economy took a major hit during the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to about 20 million deaths, a negative global GDP growth rate of 3.4%, and a more than 30-year high unemployment rate of 6.6%. One of the major casualties of the pandemic and global recession was a near collapse of the global travel, hospitality, and tourism industry. International tourist arrivals fell from a record high of about 1.4 billion in 2019. That fell 72% to 406 million in 2020. However, international tourism has recovered, reaching 1.2 billion international arrivals in 2023 and estimated to surpass its pre-pandemic level in 2024. This has been referred to as revenge tourism. Well, joining us now is Obey Ire Okafor, CEO, Edo State Tourism Agency, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me, Glenn.
Yeah, so quite an impressive, return we're seeing for the tourism industry at this time. Talk to me about this revenge tourism, that we're seeing at this time, and is it sustainable?
Yes. So let me start by giving a quick background on the problem. So nobody could foresee the pandemic occurring. It caused a medical, psychological, and economic crisis. In fact, the last widespread pandemic occurred in 1918, the Spanish flu. So going back, COVID occurred early 2020, right. 2020, yes. And it was devastating. I mean, lives were lost, lifestyle changes were made. We're all wearing masks. We had to get accustomed to using hand sanitizers and all. Governments all over the world, imposed lockdowns. So people were frustrated. People were, sitting at home doing nothing. Inadvertently, because we were not moving, we had saved up money. So come 2020 for tourism, there was a dip, there was a hit, 2021. But 2022, beginning of 2022, we started to see a recovery. Governments were easing the lockdowns, restrictions all over the world. But more importantly, people, Nigerians all over the world, people all over the world were suffering from lockdown fatigue. They needed to move around.
I definitely experienced that, for sure.
Yes. So they started traveling with a vengeance. And that's how we have the term, tourism, vengeance and all. So what happened was that the impact of this caused a global phenomenon. So how did traveling and all, revenge tourism, how did it impact the world? If you look at the data from UNWTO, that's the United Nations World Trade Organization, the international foreign receipts for 2019 pre-COVID was $1.7 trillion. So COVID took a hit 2020, 2021. But the recovery in 2022, the international travel receipts amounted to just over $1 trillion.
Right.
Yes. In 2023, $1.4 trillion. That shows you how much people were traveling. And in 2024, it is estimated to reach $2 trillion. So definitely there's a comeback in tourism.
Quite a revenge comeback, I must say. And definitely this is also a time where there's a cost of living crisis, and we've seen, inflation ravage consumers, and we're also seeing, central bankers raising rates and all of that. And I'm wondering, that would definitely be some kind of headwind, to the tourism industry, if I'm not wrong. But it seems the revenge doesn't care.
And it doesn't care. And, people live once, really, and they will find their level, their command of income, Life is hard, so at the end of the day, you need to take a break. Yes, you need to set your mind off the pressures of economy and also travel. The travel industry is here to stay. The hospitality industry is here to stay, definitely.
All right, looking at the data now, we're seeing activity, with some of the countries, benefiting from this surge. In 25 years, we've seen the likes of Dubai. They've grown from a desert to become a top, tourist, destination at this time. Talk to me about how, countries like Nigeria, countries in Africa can actually, get to this same level, exporting tourism.
Okay. So I guess the question is, what is the impact of tourism on the global GDP? Okay. So in 2022, it was $7.7 trillion. That amounted to 7.6% of the global GDP. In 2023, it was $9.5 trillion, and that amounted to 9.2% of the global GDP. People travel for different reasons. It could be leisure, it could be business, it could be medical, but people move. That's one of the characteristics of human beings. So this impact is gone beyond the countries that we're used to. So for example, the US, the countries in Europe, the UK, it's now gone across, the impact has gone across most of the countries in the main six continents. So for example, 6 out of the 10 tourism-dependent countries are island nations. What are island nations? So you have Belize, you have Jamaica. So what have these countries done differently? They have taken advantage of their sun, sea, and sand tourism. So they have beaches, natural water. They have good weather. So they've invested heavily in infrastructure, hotels. So you have brand name hotels, in their leisure activities. And that is what has boosted tourism. So the impact can be felt worldwide.
Right, and looking at this now, see top leading tourism spots, at this time, and the massive revenue brought in. We've seen North America, Europe, Asia, 135.2. That's for North America. These are good numbers. We've seen, countries like Dubai and Madrid, Spain.
Yes.
Lovely tourist attractions at this time. And one thing about most of these tourist spots is they have this history, when it comes to culture, rich culture and all of that. And Nigeria, we have culture.
Yes, we do.
In Nigeria, and those states, for one. Talk to me about how we can harness all of these Nigeria's culture, Africa's culture, to push tourism even bigger.
So history and culture are very attractive factors when it comes to tourism. So if you recall, when Queen Elizabeth was celebrating her Platinum Jubilee, billions of pounds were spent in England by local and international tourists on accommodation, on food, on souvenirs, regarding the Jubilee. But in Africa, our history is deep and is unique to us. In Egypt, for example, you have the pyramids. So the history behind the pyramids is that the pharaohs were expected to be gods in the afterlife. So in the pyramids, they were buried with materials that they would need. So for example, gold, jewelry, some statues of them. So tourists pay a handsome fee to come to Egypt to look at those pyramids. Coming back to Nigeria, in Edo State, for example, our unique history is a source of competitive advantage to us. Yes, it is. So Edo State did not just begin as Edo State. We started as the Benin Kingdom. Going from the Benin Kingdom, then we were part of the Mid-Western region. Then, from the Benin and Delta provinces, they formed Bendel State. Out of Bendel State, they cut out Edo State. So, for example, did you know that our University of Benin was once referred to as MIT?
MIT?
Midwest Institute of Technology.
Right, not the MIT we know the about.
No, so Edo has evolved. So our history is peculiar to us. It cannot be replicated by any other person. We also have in Edo State the Benin Moat. So it's referred to as one of the largest man-made artifacts in West Africa. Yes. And then also, it was built in the 14th century as a defense fortification against invaders. So it's also a UNESCO World Tourism Site. So that is unique to us. And what the Edo State Tourism Agency, in collaboration with MOA is Museum of West African Art, which I will talk about later, in Edo State. So part of our responsibility, amongst others, is restoring the restoration of the moat and all the tourism sites for people to come and see.
Right, quite interesting. And definitely, if you're trying to sell tourism, you also have to sell that your country is suitable, for tourists, at this time. And, we've been getting a lot of negative outcomes at this time, especially when it comes to security. And I don't know how you can, push tourism, if your country is not seen as, secure. So I want to believe there are also talks with security agencies to make sure that Nigeria is secure, so that when tourists come here, you come here and you feel safe.
Definitely.
Because that is key to
Yes.
push tourism.
Yes. Tourists must feel safe to travel out of their usual environment.
Right.
To come to Nigeria or anywhere else. So, and that is what countries like UAE, Dubai, the Middle East, they've invested heavily in security. Yes. So you can see the low crime rates of those areas. Also, they've invested in infrastructure, brand name hotels. We have in Edo State, for example, Protea, Radisson Blu will soon be ready. Most of the tallest buildings in the world can be found in the Middle East and Asia.
Right.
So there's a reason why they invested in security and infrastructure to attract people to leave their usual environment and come to them. That is the essence of tourism.
Right.
So we have to pay attention to the security issues in Nigeria. We also have to expand our scope of infrastructure.
Right. And I know you did have a mega concert in Benin City that was organized by your agency, and I'm sure in December, because I've heard from some Uber and Bolt drivers, they did talk about a lot of just got back. That's people from abroad, diaspora, coming back home to actually have fun.
Yes.
How was it? The mega concert, and I'm sure the state made a lot of money from that.
Yes, I'll try to be as modest as I can. The turnout and the success of the event of the mega concert was mind-blowing. So what we did, we flew in some of Nigeria's best artists. So we had Pato Rankin, we had Flavor, we had Goya Mena, we had our very own DJ Sose and other artists. And we invested heavily in the sound and surround, and so the artists were happy to perform, and also the crowd was wowed by the performance and all. But that's part of tourism. Music is a love language. Everybody responds to music, and that's what we did. There was free popcorn, free drinks, and free finger foods. But more importantly, we couldn't have achieved it without the help of our corporate sponsors, the biggest of whom was Dangote. So we also had sponsorship from Fidelity Bank, from Intercontinental Distillers Limited, and also MTN. Also, during the concert, we did a raffle draw for people from the public to pick, The first prize was an all-expense paid trip to Ivory Coast. That's the picture of the winner there.
Right.
Second prize, all-expense paid trip to Ghana. Yes. And the third prize was a 3-day all-expense paid holiday in our Protea Hotel, Select Amoton in Benin City. Yes.
Quite interesting.
Yes.
Well, I wish I won something, definitely, but yeah.
But a week later,
right.
A week later, we had another concert. It was a national jazz concert.
Okay.
So the Edo State Tourism Agency, in collaboration with Jazz Culture, which is a jazz group consisting of different artists and jazz lovers. So we did a national concert. We had renowned artists like Yinka Davis. We had Dede himself. We had Sammy Sachs. So it was wonderful. December was a glorious time. People came home.
So I guess it was a dirty December, as they would refer to it, right here. But look, definitely, we're seeing 2024 start off with, rate hikes, as usual. That's in Nigeria here. We're seeing the Naira, trying to stabilize a bit, at this time.
Yes.
Talk to me about what you're seeing, for the tourism industry in 2024 into 2025.
Okay. Nigeria is a beautiful place. Nigerians are very interesting people. We always draw attention wherever we go. We've come a long way. We've come a long way. 20 years ago, we had only about 8 airports. Now we have 32 airports, 5 international airports, which are regarded worldwide for global transportation. So I know that Nigeria has invested a lot in infrastructure and, you know, somewhat in security, but there's a lot more to be done. There are different sectors that we still need to invest in. For example, rail. They're doing a good job. I know about the Warri-Itakpe train that goes through Edo State, the Lagos-Abeokuta train. So all these are modes of transportation for tourists. Then aviation industry too is doing quite well. We have a number of airlines that fly locally. I mean, Arik, Ibom Air, Green Africa. That's one of my favorites because on-time performance. And we have Air Peace as well. And thankfully, Air Peace is going to start flights from Lagos, London, and back. So that will bring our brothers and sisters in diaspora, and also, I guess, the foreign tourists as well. Ibom Air flies to Ghana. So they will also bring the Ghanaian tourists as well. Nigeria is blessed with tourism sites. In Edo State, we are developing a cultural district, a 3 square mile, and then MOA, Museum of West African Art. That's going to be a center of excellence for archaeology and artwork. Lagos State is progressive. So they have the Badagry Slave Museum. It was a point of no return, point for European merchants dealing in slaves. That's deep history. We have the Agongon Festival in Kebbi State, it's a fish festival. We have the Calabar Carnival, which is an annual carnival every year. Akwa Ibom, one of my favorite states. Right. It's a beautiful place. So Akwa Ibom has Ibeno Beach, is the longest sand beach in West Africa. Ikpene is a raffia city. So there's a lot of history. It's also a commerce space. So I know in conclusion that government is committed to diversifying its income away from oil. Tourism is one of the viable means of achieving that. That's the truth. So we must invest in security. Right. People must feel safe. And we must invest in infrastructure. By commodification of tourism. What do I mean by that? We make tourism a product by utilizing, you know, our culture, our tradition, you know, by, you know, leveraging them, and then we make it a commodity to earn profit. What does that do to us, for us? Development, economic development. It also puts Nigeria on the map, center of the map of global tourism. So Nigeria the economy is recovering slowly but surely. Right. Do I believe in the future of tourism and hospitality in Nigeria? Yes, I do.
Yeah, and I believe too, because definitely, I love tourism money because, you know, it comes in and it stays in. You know, you don't have to worry much about repatriation, you know, when tourism money comes in. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. That's Mr. Bayi Ire Okafor, CEO, Edo State Tourism Agency. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you for having me, Ladi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.